del Ejército de Estados Unidos y también ex asesor de seguridad nacional del presidente Trump. También fue uno de los principales objetivos durante toda la investigación del Spygate y, de hecho, según documentos no clasificados del gobierno, el nombre del general Flynn estuvo presente en más de 45 veces por funcionarios de la era Obama, incluyendo también por el ex vicepresidente, el propio señor Joe Biden. Sin embargo, bueno, parece que desde que dejó su cargo público, el general Flynn ha pasado a la ofensiva presentando demandas legales contra funcionarios tanto del FBI como también del Departamento de Justicia de Estados Unidos por persecución maliciosa, así como también por abuso de proceso. Y además de esta demanda contra el Departamento de Justicia, en una entrevista exclusiva que el general Flynn concedió a nuestro medio The Epoch Times, reveló el hecho de que también ha presentado otra demanda, una demanda contra el Pentágono por emitir erróneamente una multa de $40,000 contra su pensión, que según él fue motivada políticamente. Entonces, bueno, ahora vamos a escucharlo al señor Flynn, pero antes podemos aprovechar este momento para que usted nos regale su poderoso me gusta. Así todo lo que le contamos aquí a usted también llegue a miles de personas más. Entonces ponga rápidamente me gusta y vamos a escucharlo al general Flynn.
That's why these globalists out there, that's why they're having a damn tough time taking our freedom away, but they are trying every single day.
And so you mentioned you're fighting for that freedom, and there's one specific aspect of that I wanted to highlight, which is that about 4 months ago, on February, I believe 22nd of this year, you, in a relatively quiet manner, wasn't really reported that much, but you filed a claim, a $50 million claim against the FBI and the DOJ for malicious prosecution related to the Spygate investigation, quote-unquote Spygate investigation that they ran against you. Can you sort of set the stage for the audience? What was that lawsuit about?
Yeah, so first of all, if you guys can link that filing that we had, it's a terrific filing, and it really tells it tells us the story of sort of what happened. And I think every American needs to read it, because you're not talking, and I know that I've had so many people in this country come to me and say similar things have happened to them, but they didn't have the platform that I had. You're talking about the National Security Advisor of the United States of America to the President of the United States of America. I mean, you don't get to that level, first of all, by being by not having the experience, the requisite experience to be able to have those, that kind of a position. And yet they came after me that as hard as they did and as fast as they could to get me out of there. And they did a masterful job of doing that. And then what we found over really 4 or 5 years, and there's still stuff that's coming out. In fact, some stuff came out this past week from another case that's out there that's being held, I think, it's being held up in New York or Washington District. And so what it's about is essentially we want, the term limit, or not the term limits, but the statute of limitations, we had to get inside of that. So we filed, and we basically said we're putting on notice that we are going to sue. Okay? And we're putting on notice all of the individuals that were part of this case from the top down, right? Jim Clapper, former Director of National Intelligence, all the way on down. So what the DOJ, and they have not replied back yet. They will. They'll reply back probably. My guess is probably within about another month. So they've had it for about a year. So you said February. We actually filed that back in August. It became public finally because somebody was paying attention, right? And it really became public. So anyway, so the goal is to say, look, the DOJ is going to, more than likely they'll come back and they'll say, nope, denied, which is fine, because now we can go after the individuals because they're all private individuals. Okay? So all these people that are, because it's really to sort of sue City Hall, to fight City Hall, which is in this case the Department of Justice, is really very difficult to do. And they just go back and forth. And it'll happen with me probably with suing some of these individuals who are, we name a bunch of them in the filing. So some of it will be, it's this like trench warfare. It's kind of the way I look at this. This is trench warfare, and I'm not gonna give up. And so we're gonna go after the people that lied to not only and defamed my family and I, but also damaged the reputation of this country, damaged the reputation of everything that we stand for on this planet, and also damaged the institutional reputations of the United States intelligence community, the United States Department of Justice, the entire system of our rule of law, right? I mean, the amount of damage that was done, and they didn't do it because they made a mistake. They did it intentionally. Okay, so I believe that, and that's what that case is about. The amounts of money, to me it's really meaningless. It's actually to show to a degree to the American people, and frankly anybody that's out there that's fighting like this, that we have to stop being pincushions for these ugly attacks that are false, misleading, they're defamatory, and so the challenge, and a little legal lesson, the challenge for people and for your audience, the challenge for people that have very high profile names and positions that I was in, is you have to prove much greater than just defamation. And there's actually a Supreme Court case that's still being fought against that talks about that with high profile people. So there's people trying to fight that particular case, which is fine. That's a sidebar to all this. But that's why it's so hard for people that have a high profile to actually do what I'm doing.
It's the malicious intent, right? You have to prove malicious intent.
Yeah. And it's really hard. You know this. I mean, you guys, you could say, this source told me this about you. And I go, well, why did you say that on ET, right? And so now I got to prove that it was malicious intent on your part, Roman. And it's a standard it's a legal standard that it's a very, very high bar. And so anyway, so we are doing this just to demonstrate that to these sons of guns that we are not going to give up on them, and I'm not going to let them get away with it. I'm not going to let them get away with it. And I've said in other venues that I will meet them at the gates of hell, if necessary, to kick them in the rear end on their way in to whatever little hole that they need to go into, because these are dangerous people. These are dangerous people because they have usurped their ethics, their morals, and their law. And they took advantage of it because they were in positions of power and authority, and they thought that they were going to get away with it. And in many of your audience, if they listen to what I just said about getting away with it, many of your audience is going to say, well, they are getting away with it. Because we have a Department of Justice that only seems to go after people with conservative political views, American values, political views, instead of the wokeness and all this other craziness that we see. I mean, how many people were convicted of rioting and murdering in the summer of 2020, right, when the Antifa was burning cities to the ground and murdering people? I think the numbers of cops that were killed was like 20. So why is it that is all these people are getting away with all that? Why? And American people are sitting there going, well, when is something going to happen? But there's two words that our founders gave us, and they both demonstrated it. One is courage, and the second is accountability. And they demonstrated extraordinary courage in a period of time where our nation was at risk. This brand new set of colonies that were trying to figure out what they wanted to be was at risk, right? I mean, they demonstrated extraordinary courage in not only their physical actions, but courage in their intellectual actions, right? The decisions that they made. And then the other thing that they demonstrated was accountability. So they gave account of themselves to give up everything, right? And be accountable. And they all knew that if George Washington had lost the American Revolution, right? He'd have been hung in the center square of New York City, and his body would have hung there for as long as they could march every particular, they would have marched the entire 13 colonies through to show them this is what's going to happen to you. Okay, he'd have been hung all of them would have been hung for treason, and many of them gave up their lives and gave up their treasure and all that to do that. That's called accountability. Where's the accountability in our government today? Where are those type of people today in our government?
Well, it seems like I I came across a story regarding you. It seems like the DOD and the federal government in general, it seems like that's what they're doing to you in a certain sense to this day. There was a recent fine that was levied against you, like a $40,000 fine for your trip to Russia.
Yeah.
But I read the details of that trip, and it seems like you got the okay from multiple agencies.
And I presented, and I went and did a classified briefing prior. I did a classified briefing after. Which means, you go get counterintelligence assessments. You go get from the people that you're going to go do this. What kind of information are you looking for? And then you try to get the answers for those people, and you come back and you give those answers back. That's normal. Diplomats, retired government officials like me would do stuff like that routinely, and so it's like. But what did they do? They came after me.
Well, that's my question, because reading through the facts of that particular case, I thought, well, this all seemed on the up and up. Everything was signed off multiple times. So my question is, what justification do they have to fine you $40,000? And are you fighting back against that?
I'm fighting back against that. And we have a motion into the Department of Defense. I mean, this is what happens to those of us that are not going to buy into this socialist movement that we are experiencing right now in this country. I'm not going to buy into it. This country is not going to be a socialist country, because the American people don't want that. And they're going to try every which way to make us a socialist country, by usurping every aspect and particularly coming after people like me. And it's a shame. This is not what I want to do. It's not what I want to do. I mean, I'm doing it because I have grandchildren. And I'm like looking at my kids and my grandkids, and I'm going, God, is this what I want them to have as a nation? I want them to live in a country where they don't know what freedom actually is. I mean, there's people that I met in Epoch Times who have come from communist countries, right? And they know, and I think that's part of why Epoch Times has been such a strong advocate for freedom, and has been such a strong advocate for truth. And listening and talking to all sides. So.
Pues lo que acabamos de escuchar